Ward, can you come back? Call the word. Okay, we're going to start the meeting's order. We're going to stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Frank Greenie. Here. Sarah Sinekia. Here. Amy Milan. Here. Lee Schreiber Johnson. Here. Mark Verheelen.
Here.
Karen Kowalski.
Here.
Dane Eifel. Here.
Okay, thank you for your patience. We're going to go to the agenda approval.
Andy's got the email in there. That's not the only one. There we go. We need approval of the agenda.
So legally move to approve the agenda. 25 seconds.
Any discussion? So to vote, we ask you to raise your hand, and you have to be 18 and older, and you have to be a citizen of Oak Creek or for Joint Franklin District. So, all in favor, say, raise your hand. Say aye.
Andy, do you want to go ahead?
So, Chrissy, do we need electoral approval of the budget here?
Of the budget hearing?
Yes.
Not the,
This should be by the school.
No, we're in the wrong order here. We're on the budget.
Budget.
Andy's gonna go, Andy's gonna present the budget. Sorry.
Board should go to the budget hearing.
correct.
Okay, so we have a first, who was our first?
Cheryl,
And our second?
Jane.
Okay. So all in favor of the school board, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, so our budget hearing. Let me pull up the presentation here. Here we go. Okay, so welcome to the 2021 budget hearing. So today we're just going to get a little bit of clarity. We're going to grasp some of the things we're going to talk about for the 2021 budget. So our mission, vision, core values, those haven't changed. So we've talked a lot about our remote start to school. All of those things are still the same. I know I pointed this out if you were here last year, but this picture itself really fits all. This little individual right here, I got the coach last year in baseball. I'm going to play against him this year, and I played against him for a few years. So I love looking at that picture because it comes right to home. And while I sit in the business office, I come from an educational background, and so I've had a lot of years of teaching. And even though I sit in the business office and we talk a lot about it here, they're still the kids that I have to figure out how to come for. So I might not get to teach them, or I might not get to teach them the lessons on a daily basis. Their education, that young man right there, that education is still really important to me because I get to watch them grow up and play sports and be friends with my kids. And so this vision, mission, core values affects about 430 educators, our teachers, about 200 plus support staff, and about 11 facilities. But what it's really for is It's the 6,500 students that walk into these doors every day, or will at some point in the very near future walk back into the schools. We'll get to teach them every day. So we have a couple of things we want to accomplish tonight. One, we want to understand the state budget and how it affects the Oak Creek Franklin School District. We want to take a look at the revenue limit projection and its effect on local property taxes. We want to take a look at Fund 10 and Fund 27 revenues and expenses. And those are broken out because that's how we operate schools. We talked a little bit earlier about food service and entirely separate fees. Community services or youth programs is an entirely separate piece. Those dollars don't get to operate the teacher capacity. So we break those out for that specific reason. We will talk about all other fund expenses and revenues, but at a little higher level than we will at 10 and 27. Again, they don't run school as we know. We'll talk about a proposed tax levy and a proposed mill rate. That's what most of us want to hear. My municipality, I'm interested in it. It's a taxpayer or homeowner. Those are interesting. And we'll have an opportunity for residents to comment on the budget. So, a couple of state budget assumptions from the 2019-21 biennium budget. One, we are a low revenue limit ceiling district. What that means is we have the lowest revenue limit per student in the state of Wisconsin. We were moved to $9,700 last year, we'll be moved to $10,000 this year per student. It's important to know that's for resident students. So even though we have some open enrollment students, we don't get to count that towards them. Just towards our residents. This will have an estimated $1.85 million added to the budget from that move from $9,700 to $10,000. Categorical A, this is paid in the state of Wisconsin for resident students regardless of what district they're in. That was changed last year to $742 and stays the same for this upcoming year at $742. So we'll see no additional revenue in that particular piece. And then this was talked about a lot about last year, so special education reimbursement. That is moving from about 25.3% to 30% for this year. Meaning we get 30 cents on every dollar we spend on education back into special education, back into special education. The rest of the dollars for special education come from the general education fund as a transfer. But this will have an estimated return for Oak Creek of about $335,000 based on our estimated 127 spend for this year. So additional revenue to help our needy students. Here's a history of our revenue limit per student. So we can see that these 3 years were prior to Act 10, so if you all remember that, in February 2012 or February 2011. And 10 came down, $550 from the revenue limit was cut from every district in the state. There was a couple of nickels added over a few years, and then there was a 5-year flat period where additional money may have been entered into or given, provided from the state, but not in the form of a revenue limit increase. And again, we're moving to $10,000 this year, so you can see that $300. But that again is the lowest in the state. So we'll be finding a whole bunch of other districts at $10,000. There's other districts at $17,000, $18,000. There's some in Washington County at $15,000. We're in 10. Here's the Milwaukee County comparison of revenue limit dollars per student for the school district. Milwaukee County, we're at $10,000, we're the lowest. The average is $11,689. We're $1,700 lower than the average. And I put a couple of comparisons up there. We know we compare ourselves to Franklin, so I can say the school district next door, but we know we compare to them. If we had Franklin's revenue limit per student, we would have an extra $9.2 million every year. This has been in place since 1992. But we're at 28 years, like $9.2 million. We're like $200 million short of that. Okay? I also added Wauwatosa at 10.675, or 10,675. Wauwatosa of all these districts is the closest to us. Similar size to the amount of students, similar demographics. So I added them in. $675 is still quite a bit. It's about $4 million on our students. I added this chart in here so we can see what's happened to state equalization aid and local property tax levy over the last couple of years. We'll notice that state aid has gone up, so we've gotten some more general aid. General aid is apportioned out to school districts based on the state's formula of need. Most of it is associated with property tax. You'll notice that property taxes have found a steeper increase over the last 3 years than state aid. What that shows me is that our property values are rising faster than the state average. The faster our property values rise, the state looks at that and says they need less state aid to cover that. The slower your property values rise, you need more state aid. Pretty easy in thought process calculation based on economic need or economic prosperity of the community. So let's take a look at our fund time revenues. Fund time is general education and every student. I put it in a bar graph so we can see the effect of it pretty easily. This right here represents state aid. Roughly 46% of it is state aid. This represents our property tax levy. Those two items combined put us at about 80%. Almost 80% of our revenue is generated from that $10,000 per resident student number. Again, through state aid and property tax. These next two bars represent single items. This is categorical aid. That's $742 per child that the state provides regardless of what district you live in, regardless of socioeconomic need. And then this green bar represents our open enrollment. Students who would attend another public school district if they were not allowed to come here. So 4 items make up like 95% of our budget from a revenue standpoint. This represents nothing. So others are myriad things. Student fees, other state aid such as transportation, common school funds such as library aid, integration aid which relates to Chapter 220, which is an integration program with MPS. Our grants, Title 1, 2, 3, 4, our Perkins, and then miscellaneous things like interest.
Andy, can you tell people what the grants are,
Sure.
basically?
So Title 1 is to help our students in reading and math who are socioeconomic disadvantaged. Title 2 is essentially teacher training, like if you were to put a journal category over it, it's how we help train teachers, it's funding required for that. Title 3 is for our English language learners, so those whose first language is not English. Title 4 is about a $40,000 to $50,000 grant designed to help some of our neediest students, but they're very small categories, so it's not like socioeconomic is pretty wide. So Title 4 is a very narrow group of students. Our Perkins assists with our curriculum related around technology, so woods and metals and welding or night construction, all of those things will fall under Carl Perkins. For us, Title 1 is about $525,000. Title 2 is about $120,000. Title 3 is somewhere around $100,000. Title 4, I said, is about $40,000 to $50,000. Carl Perkins is about $40,000. If we take a look at our content revenues and where they come from, property taxes is estimated this year to be at $1.1 million. Now again, it shows that our property value is rising faster than the state. That means we're going to get less state aid. So even though we're projected to receive $368,000 more state aid, it's not rising as fast as what other districts might receive. Categorical aid. So again, that's at $742 per student. It's projected to go down about $41,000, and that's simply based on our 3-year rolling average enrollment. So while we're holding steady over the last couple of years, and we project to, our 3-year average doesn't compare as well as the previous 3-year average. Open enrollment is projected to go up about $373,000. That's roughly 40 students. And then our other is projected to go down about $1.1 million. But that falls from a couple of different things. Just one second here on my notes. Interest. As we all know, if anybody has a bank account, interest is going off the face of the earth. So our interest is projected to go down about $110,000. Integration aid, again, our chapter 220 students coming from MPS into our school district is projected to fall about $144,000. Now that program has ended for new students many years ago, but we were allowed to carry the students who were in the program through, and we're simply just cycling through those particular years. So currently we will only have students in the high school starting in 2021. And then $447,000 last year was received from the school safety grant. So if you recall, Governor Walker a couple of years ago provided $100 million towards school safety. Last year we claimed $447,000 of our allotment. So those are just some of the big numbers in here, and then there's a spattering of other things that make up that dollar amount. All in all, we're projected to have about $685,000 of more revenue compared to our unaudited numbers from last year. We take a look at our expenses in a broad sense. Instruction. These are bodies or things designed for the classroom or now for the virtual learning experience. Support services would be things like school psychologists, school counselors, social workers. Teacher training would fall under that. And then transfers is a myriad of items. Transfers would be money used from the general fund to help build special education. It would be for open enrollment students, our students attending another district, or us paying a special education placement at another district as well. All of those things fall into transfers, and that's about 13.6% of our budget. So again, I just list them out here, things that I mentioned in verbiage with the diagram. So if we break out our expenses, at this point in time, we're estimating to spend about $1.5 million more on our instruction. Again, that's physically talking to students right in front of us, or things designed to instruct them right in front of them. Our support services is about $1.1 million. And our non-program transaction is about $682,000 less. This is a number that we are always looking to lower as much as possible. Not necessarily in the form of a transfer of special education, but we're always looking to bring as many students who have open enrolled out back into our district. We want to teach our kids. If you live in Oak Creek, or if you live in Franklin, and the slice that's ours, we want you back in. So we're always looking at ways to do that. Notice that this list of expenses includes about $6.1 million to cover Fund 27. So that's listed in this non-program transaction amount right here. If we take a look at expenses a different way, for Fund 10, salaries and benefits is 65.9% of our budget. The majority of our general education dollars are spent on a student or an aide or someone working in front of our kids. About 5% is open enrollment, our department budgets, curriculum, buildings and grounds, and technology went about 7%, buildings at 2.6%, utilities at 2.2%. We're doing a really great job on utility savings, and we've been working really hard at that. We've added some equipment to a revenue limit exemption, but we've also hired an HVAC expert who can really utilize the equipment as best you can. So if you set your thermostat at home on 70 degrees and runs 24 hours a day, that's going to chew up more energy than if I set it at 70 degrees every day and nighttime it's 72 or 73. So if I can figure out what the ideal cycle is when people are in the building and when they're not, that helps reduce energy. Transportation is about 4%. Mark alluded earlier, though, we're going to save some money by not having school. So again, this is a number based on school running full time. We will be addressing that. Our Fund 27 transfer is 8.1%, and then other miscellaneous items that don't fit nicely. We have some assumptions, though, inside this budget. One, there is not a compensation increase other than 1% for teachers, but that 1% doesn't go into everything. That 1% is to run our compensation plan, which takes our first, second, and third year teachers and provides them an allotment to help move them towards a higher salary. That's essentially what that's designed for. So this is not going to everybody at 1%. A 4% healthcare premium increase is built into here as well. So our goal, long-term, is to smooth out healthcare, but it takes time to get there. It's implementing the right strategies and the right things for our population, trying to maximize their efficiency. We're also continuing to fund our health reimbursement account, which is our post-employment benefit for future retirees. A contribution of $2.1 million. We've been able to hold steady at that for about 8 years. And then finally, we need to maintain our fund balance and eliminate short-term borrowing. Short-term borrowing is like hold on to my credit. I borrow it, I pay something off, and then ideally over a period of time I can pay that back. For school districts and businesses, short-term borrowing is something often used to bridge from a paycheck to a paycheck, or we're not waiting for receivables to come in. In education, our funding comes in at a very jagged pace. If you were to take a look at the graph, it's up and down, it's up and down. State aid comes in 5 times a year, property tax comes in 3 or 4 times a year, and it's never on like every month we get the same amount. Zigzags up and down. So it's important that we eliminate short-term borrowing, because otherwise we're paying somebody else money that we don't need to pay. We're paying them. Fund 27 revenues. Most of it is a fund 10 transfer, 64%. State special aid, which we mentioned is moving up to 30%, will come for just under a fourth of that. Grants, which is IDEA, so Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, will provide us $1.2 million this year. And then other. So we get some Medicaid reimbursement. Medicaid reimbursement comes from a student with a nursing need or a health need, and claiming that for federal reimbursement. We take a look at the Fund 27 revenues breakdown. We have slightly more from a Fund 10 transfer. You can see state special education aid went up. Our grants are going down slightly, we're projected to go down slightly. And our other amount is projected to go up about $18,000. Now, grants, Medicaid falls into that. So when we take the comparison of IDEA with our Medicaid funding, and our Medicaid funding being reduced, that falls into that negative 81. But all in all, we anticipate about $500,000 of additional revenue in Fund 27. If we take a look at our expenses, about 70.6% is instruction. That again is the body in front of the child, whether that's an aide, a teacher, the body in front of the child. Support services, again, psychologists, counselors, social workers are support services, and our fund transfers. So we have some students who attend a different school, and we provide that service. That is written into their IEP. Sometimes a student moves into our district with that in their IEP, we have to adhere to that. Sometimes our team, led by Ted, determines that that's the best placement for the child, and we make that placement and adjustment to our budgeting process. So our instruction, up about $286,000. Again, people in front of children. Our support services up about $200,000. And our non-program transactions is down about $10,000. So all in all, our expenses look to be up about $500,000. It's important to note that revenues and expenses in Fund 27 have to balance. It's a requirement in the Department of Public Instruction that they balance every year. So just another way to take a look at our expenses. Almost all of our money is salaries and benefits in special education. Almost all of it is a body in front of the child. 91%. A little bit for transportation and a little bit for other. Could be supplies, could be specialized textbook for a child, could be some reading implementation, a whole bunch of other things. If we take a look at our Fund 10 and Fund 27, salaries will equate to about 75%. So about $3 out of every $4 are spent on body for our kids in the district. Some assumptions in Fund 27, they mirror exactly Fund 10 because we consider them our operating expenses. So we have 0% for all of our staff, except for 1% around the compensation model for typically our youngest teachers in the district. 4% healthcare premium increase, continuing to fund the health reimbursement account, and maintaining a balance in our fund balance that eliminates short-term borrowing. So I have some final thoughts on Fund 10 and Fund 27. Again, those are operating expenses, how we teach kids. One, the current budget that I just showed you has a positive amount of $557,000. It seems like a lot, but remember, we haven't given anybody a raise yet other than a select few people. That's anybody from custodian up through Dan. A lot has been talked about since COVID came down about the budget repair bill. From everything that we have been told, this will not be addressed until after the November elections because not a single legislator wants to touch it. But we've heard a lot about the state revenues falling, unemployment's going up from the state. So with revenues going down and expenses going up, you know, Governor Evers has already cut 5% of certain department budgets. We also need to understand what the discussions look like for the upcoming 2021 and 2023 biennium budget look like. There is no additional money for education over the next 2 years. We have to plan for that because we still have to educate our kids. A couple of other thoughts that go along with this. I mentioned this earlier in the meeting. Right now, we have provided a method of a purchase order for $1.25 million, which means we have to pay that $1.25 million. We've legally obligated ourselves to do that, to educate our virtual students. And then again, the students who have elected to take a semester or a year away from school, face to face. We've added virtual remote learning staff right now for about $502,000. Those two items right there are $1.7 million. And if we go back to this previous slide, we've only are ahead right now by $557,000. We also do have some CARES Act funding coming in. This is from the first budget repair bill from the federal government. Right now, we're guaranteed $425,000. That can move up to somewhere around $446,000, depending on what happens with the private school allocation. That is yet to be determined by the state. So if we add $557,000 plus $425,000 for $982,000, we're still short from the $1.75 million that's up. So what does all that mean? Well, in our general education fund, we're up about $1.9 million projected from the previous year. Special education and Fund 20. So Fund 21 is a little bit different. Fund 21 are donations or gifts to the school district, as well as school clubs. So that operates under that same Fund 20. But we don't budget for it in any particular year because those accounts are run by groups like the football club or school PTA. There's a myriad of activities, and those accounts have to stay positive every year. So while they're factored into expenses from the previous year, we don't budget for them because those accounts have to remain positive and they're run by their particular organizations. Our debt service, it seems like it's drastically down from 11 to 32 million. But last year we refinanced about $20 million. And we refinanced so that we could provide dollars back to the taxpayer in the form of interest savings, much like you would do a refinance of your home. So you have a long-term loan out there, if I refinance it, I will pay less over the term of that loan. So we refinanced about $20 million last year, and I know Leah's going to address a little bit more of that in the treasurer's report. Our capital projects is set to be about the same. This is related to the referendum passed in 2018 and the revenue limit exemption passed by the school board in 2017. We're in one of the projects right now. If you had a chance to check out the cafeteria, and if you've never seen the cafeteria bedroom before, the school knows the drastic difference. And for those of you that have kids at Shepherd Hills, when we allow visitors back into the building, make sure you watch for the cafeteria there, because you wouldn't even recognize it. So it's pretty awesome. Food service, this directly relates to our feeding kids breakfast and lunch. 2.573 million, this assumes that we were earning lunch on day one. We know that's not going to happen, but we're still going to have to feed students. So we talked about some of it tonight. Tomorrow, communication is going to go out about how lunch can be provided for students during remote and virtual learning. Last year, we ended at about $2.1 million. But that did include lunches all the way through the June 9th date, but we certainly do not provide lunches at the same rate we would as if we were open. Community service, you'll notice has gone up slightly. Right now, this is in relation to the talks from the city, working to combine their recreation program with our youth program so that there's one umbrella for 0 to 99 in the city of Oak Creek rather than going to 2 entities. So when we total up all the funds, $130 million this year, well, I didn't even know you could do that. Learn something new every day, I guess. Sorry about that. Sorry, folks. There we go. So all of our funds are about 130 million. Notice last year we were 151 million. Most of it relates to that refinancing that we talked about, about $20 million. So refinancing provides some taxpayer assistance. Our interfund transfers are less. Last year we were able to transfer some money into Fund 46. Fund 46 is a long-term capital improvement plan project. It's basically putting money away for your roof, or a driveway at home, or some new windows. So we were able to move some money into there. We were also able to prepay some debt. We were able to prepay some debt for this upcoming year to help us with operating costs. Our net total is roughly the same. 0.31% less than last year when we take a look at everything top to bottom. There's two critical pieces of information that we're going to need to solidify our tax levy. And we'll talk about proposed tax levy, but there's two pieces that we have to have. We have to have a third Friday count on September 18th. So our Director of Curriculum, John Bennett, talked about how to count students virtually, remotely. So all of that will have to be taken into consideration. We do that on the third Friday. And then we need to wait for a state aid certification on October 15th. So those are the two biggest pieces. That state aid certification relates directly to the revenue limit, which is offset by property taxes. What we're using right now is the 2% equalized property value growth. And I took a look at past histories, and 2% fit in line with that. But I just received notification on preliminary tax, the property value increase from the previous year. I got that last week, at about 5% for Oak Creek. So we'll talk about how that affects us. Now, one of the reasons I can't change the slides for this is this has to be provided to the newspaper. We provided that around August 10th and 12th. So I have to go off those particular numbers for a figure, but I can give you what a projection is here at 5% equals property value. So here's our proposed tax levy if you just look at raw dollars. Last year, general fund, 26.3, this year's 27.4. Non-referendum debt. This is like your car payment. You go out and buy a car, you take a loan up for it, but you still pay for it out of operating funds from your everyday check. Your mortgage pays out of your everyday check. Non-referendum debt operates in the same way. The district at some point took some money up to do some projects, but they didn't say we're going to pay for it through operating funds. Our referendum debt, about $370,000 more this particular year. Those are things that we had to go to the voters and ask their permission to do. So we have the 9th grade center in Forest Bridge, and the projects that we're doing right now equate for most of that $9.5 million. Community service is up slightly for two reasons. One of the costs is directly related to our school resource officers. So we simply take their contract, which is what it was last year, and we roll it into the new cost. The other piece is about $5,000 to repay fund balance in Fund 80. With school closure in March, our youth programs lost about $5,000 over the course of last year. DPI, the Department of Public Instruction, requires us to levy whatever was lost that we end up with at least a $0 balance at the end of the year. So that's about $5,000. So when we take the new SRO contract plus the $5,000, we get to this $217,000 number. And then our state voucher program. So these are students who are going to a private entity, whether parochial or non or private entity, who get funding from the state. So last year they pulled about $305,000 from us. We project about $340,000 to be pulled from us this year to pay for that particular program. It's escalating. Last year or the year before this was about $179,000. And so it can fluctuate quite drastically based on the students in your municipality who are attending a voucher school and are receiving a voucher. But all in all, our tax levy is $38.8 million. Our projected tax levy last year was about $37.08. It's important to note these aren't new dollars. This property tax is the portion of the revenue limit that is not paid for through general education funds, along with our voter approved items. That's how most of our tax levy is generated. Here was 2019-20. As I mentioned, we used a 2% property value growth to get to this $4.26 billion. What is broken down to each of these is how is the mill rate from these expenses generated here. So this $27.4 million of general fund equates to $6.45 of our mill rate. Our non-referendum debt of about $1.1 million generates 28 cents. Our referendum debt of about $9.5 million generates $2.25. Our $217,000 community services 5 cents. Our $340,000 of state voucher program is 8 cents. All in all, projected to be $9.11, or up $2.78, or 2.78% from last year. Now, I mentioned that's based on 2% property growth. As I mentioned, I received a valuation of about 5% to be applied to the Oak Creek Franklin Joint School District. If we move this to 5% rather than 2%, it drops our mill rate to $8.88, or 2 cents higher than the previous year. So we're right in line with where we were last year, and we now I project that at 5% having seen that down. So just for some points of clarification of what does that mean for me, home value of $100,000, and I know most homes don't cost $100,000, they cost quite a bit more. But $100,000 is a nice easy number to think of. So if our mill rate is $9.11 compared to last year, that's about $25 for $100,000 of home value. So Zillow has the median Oak Creek home value of $266,425, which is about $66.61. That's if our mill rate is $9.11. If it's 2 cents, that equates to quite a bit less. So 2 cents per 100,000 would be $2 instead of 25, and would be roughly $5 instead of 66 on that median home value price. So again, very comparable to the previous year. This graph represents our mill rate history. For the state right here, and this is Oak Creek, and this is the last 10 years. I do not have a bullet point for the state yet because mill rates aren't set until October 15th when they're approved by, or after October 15th, or before November 1st when they're approved by school districts. Then we would have a state one. But you can see over the history, in many years we're significantly lower than the state average from a property tax standpoint. Goes right along with our revenue limit of $10,000 for a child, which is now the lowest in the state. Those things go hand in hand. Here's a mill rate from last year of the school districts in Milwaukee County. A couple of things to note. These orange bands right here, those represent K-8 school districts. This green band represents Nicolay High School, which is only a high school of 912 building. So if we take a look at the blues, Renaissance, we have the lowest mill rate in Milwaukee County of any K-12 district. Again, we have the lowest revenue limit in the district, or 8 of the districts in Washington County. So I would assume that those go hand in hand, there's a strong correlation. The average last year was $9.72. Remember, we were at $8.86. And just for comparison, our neighbors Franklin are $10.60, almost $2 higher than we are. And Wauwatosa was at $9.34, so about 50 to 60 cents higher than we were last year. So that is the budget presentation. At this time, if a citizen would like to speak or have some comments regarding the budget, they are free to step to the podium.
No?
Do a good presentation. In regards to the budget, first off, thanks everybody for volunteering. Everyone volunteers on board. I know every one of you, and I support you 100% what you're doing, all right? And I also commend you from earlier for reevaluating all the criteria. It takes a lot of guts to do that. In regards to the budget, I'm also on a budget, all right? And over the last several years, the district has come and asked for a lot of money from the citizens to go free, all right? This always seems like a small increase, and I get it, it's a small increase for a $266,000 home. But when I ask you really, when you look at benefits and you look at all these things that you were discussing earlier, it may seem nominal to you, and I understand employee retention is paramount. Hey, I get that. It's hard to find good teachers, but I also can tell you there's a lot of teachers looking for jobs right now. I'm not talking negative about that. I'm talking about pennies, right? Adding up to big dollars. I've got 2 kids in college, all right? So I understand the budget. So I'm going to ask you just to continue to do what you always do and just really be cautious with your budget, right? I respect each and every one of you. You've done a great job. Dan, going to return my phone calls. I love it. Poor Frank gets the brunt of all my frustration, and Cheryl got it the other day, but you know what? You're good people, and I respect that. All I'm asking is that you really be careful with the budget, all right? It's a big strain on me as a single dad with sole custody of my daughter. They have to go through this, right? And when I look at my budget, I see the increase. It's only $66 for 200, you know, it adds up over years. You've got great facilities. Okay, you've got great facilities. But at some point, we've got to level it off and say, okay, at what point do you just get the taxpayers grade for 3-4 years at a time? Instead of saying each year we're going to go up a little bit, a couple hundred bucks. So that couple $100 adds up over time. Okay, that's it. So thank you, appreciate it. Thank you for all you do. Love you guys. Hope you all come back and do it again next year. All right.
This is more a question than a comment. One of the items that you went through is health reimbursement account. Expand on that a little bit. I think like $1 million into that. What exactly is that for retirees? What exactly?
Generally don't comment on the public comments, no.
Sir, I'll just interject that we do an update on it each year, and it'll be discussed by the board at another meeting. So if you read our agendas or the documents that come out, the HR director and Andy go through it annually in great detail, or you can call our offices tomorrow and talk to Andy, the HR director, and he can help you.
Okay.
Anybody else? On the budget? Okay. Now going to the adoption of preliminary 2021 budget. You have a motion?
Mr. Nigley moves to adopt the preliminary budget.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. You say nay?
No, that's the audience.
They adjourn the school board budget hearing and convene to the annual meeting, excuse me.
Hold on, no purpose. Oh, gosh. This is just a reminder during the annual meeting, so we will call on the vote of the electorate, so those are residents of the Oak Creek Franklin School District. So that's a key portion, and then we'll be doing a hand count vote. So when a vote is called, if you vote yay, that's asked for, raise your hand, we'll take a call for that. If you're going to vote A. When it's called for that, please raise your hand, and we will go through those particular counts to determine how it is, much like a roll call vote for the board, where we count 7-0, 6-1, 5-2, we'll take an electric count as well.
So anybody who's a resident, an 18 or older, raise their hand and vote in this next portion.
So number one on the agenda is
Wait,
election.
did we have a point of order, like an adjournment? Do we have to be adjourn and reconvene? We have to make a motion to adjourn and reconvene?
So I'm sorry, Frank, did you adjourn the school
I
board
did, but
meeting here?
yeah,
And
you cut down.
did we motion and adjourn?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can we go back and hear that, please?
Yeah, can we have a
So
motion
you
to
need a
adjourn?
motion to adjourn the budget hearing.
So legally moves to adjourn the school budget hearing and convene the annual meeting.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, say nay.
Okay, everything Andy just said regarding residents and raising the hand and the voting, we're into the next portion. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
All right, the agenda, number one, election of chairperson. Motion.
So legally second.
And then we have a raise of hands on, for,
So I'm sorry, let me get my notes again. So you're the first.
I was a second.
Okay, no, go ahead. Okay.
so if we can have a raise of hand if you want, me to lead the chairperson of this meeting.
Keep them up, Mr. Thielen's gonna count.
Can you repeat it?
I couldn't understand.
Sorry, okay, so one more time. Darren nominated Frank to be the chairperson for this next portion, and Cheryl seconded. And then he called for a vote. So if you're a resident, you want Frank to be the chair of the next portion of it, to kind of run the agenda and do this stuff, you can raise your hand and vote yes. And then we'll call for a vote no next. It's a different sort of meeting. It's the only one that has this feature that we do all year. So sorry for the oddness to it. Mr. Thielen is an assistant superintendent. He's going to count the votes. What was that?
30.
30.
All those voting no, please raise your hand.
I see 0 no's.
All right, Mr. Chairperson, and you.
Yep, thank you. Adoption of the minutes from the budget hearing and annual meeting on August 26, 2019.
So legally moves to approve.
Hold on a second.
And all in favor, we raise our hands again.
This is approving the minutes from last year.
Yeah, these are from last year. It's kind of weird.
Yeas.
And,
All those voting no?
I see 0 no's.
okay, unaudited treasury report, but I guess we try to bring that.
Andy has one.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. So I'm here to talk quickly about the fund balance for our district. One of the challenges faced by all districts is that revenue tends to be received late in the year in the form of property taxes and state aid, while expenses begin immediately at the start of the new year. Our district fluctuates more than 18 million in spending revenue across the year. So holding that minimum ensures we don't have to pay the bank short-term loan interest. You can see the very first bar up there on the left is where our fund balance was last year and at this time, and the final bar is where it was in the summer. with the red being the moment in the school year where we have the least money in our fund balance. It just means that we paid a lot of bills and haven't received, the fee that has been discussed at multiple points. These funds are called fund balance and are usually measured at the end of the fiscal year, which is the 30th. And let's see, there's that. An added upside to having this funding is that the district generates interest on the account, which this year reached 281,000 plus, and those dollars are put right back into the general fund, equivalent to salary and full benefits for about 3 years. Sometimes we hear people ask us why we don't spend more of this money throughout the year, why we don't use it to pay ongoing expenses. The district's policy on fund balance indicates the need to carry an operating reserve, provide adequate cash flow, serve as a safeguard against unanticipated expenditures and unrealized revenues, raise or maintain the district's bond rating, and lessen the long-term tax burden on the community by adding interest revenue and avoiding short-term interest. Reducing our fund balance means we make less in revenue through that interest. Reducing our fund balance means we make less in revenue through that interest, and we also put our community at risk for interest charges. We also, with our fund balance, are able to fund one-time cost projects that otherwise would not fit into our annual budget. We were able to, in a sense, give ourselves a loan with a payback plan in place through the revenue these projects would generate for 3 recent projects. We updated the lighting at both of our middle schools with more energy efficient LED lights. We were able to purchase enough local single-family lots to ensure the future of Knight's construction program for 4 years, and we were able to make a valuable upgrade to our football field scoreboard. So here's a breakdown of some of the changes, changes to our account this year. There are a few upsides to COVID, but one of them is the district was able to save a little money on health insurance. We are self-funded, which means that we don't pay an insurance company if we don't have full sick. Since most hospitals are discouraging a lot of procedures right now, our healthcare costs were down. And so 181,000 of earmarked healthcare dollars will be rolled into the future healthcare costs coming to us for future school years. Sorry, what did I say? 181. Oh, I'm sorry. 841. That's the number I read. We were also able to pay off the West Middle School lighting project, adding back 225K back into the balance, and 3 years worth of payments on the East Middle School lighting, meaning that all of that money is going to be going right back into the general fund and paying for teachers to be in front of kids. We also were able to put the cost of this $350,000 scoreboard back into fund balance, building more interest revenue for the future, and transferring the future ad revenue from the sign back into the general fund instead of using it to pay off the project long term. Fund balance includes a number of specific and separate designations of dollars. And it's not just one big pot of money that we can use as we see fit. In fact, much of the money is a calculation of holdings or protected for very specific uses as they arise. The $47 million highlighted here is the current amount of money we're holding for referendum projects, and the $25 million in our current holding is general fund balance, which is what is necessary for our fluctuating revenue to expenses ratio across the year. Each of the 424 Wisconsin public school districts derives its revenue from 4 major sources, which Annie went into in some detail, but essentially there are state aid, property taxes, federal aid, and local sources like admissions, student fees, interest, gifts, and grants. The general fund is mostly instruction, while the other funds are mostly other services, like healthcare fund I mentioned, classroom support, food transport, and other vital resources for students, and debt payment on past projects. Special education costs. One thing I want to point out about that, that connects back to some of the discussion we had, both in this room and across the state with regard to budgets, in this past biennium especially. In 1819, and again, in this year, 1920, we transferred $6 million plus each year from our general fund to cover the cost of special education. These are unfunded special education services. In Oak Creek, we're committed to providing all of our students for all of our student learning needs. The state also has a responsibility to ensure that the unique and intensive services required for some of our students do not come at the expense of others. At the current funding levels, after months of advocating for special education funding with our legislators, we did receive an increase. And you saw Andy going into detail about that percentage and what that meant for us. 4.7% this year. And we will continue to make our students' needs known. You can see that this still leaves us almost $7 billion. This is $7 million, not all of that is special education right now. So it's still, but it's still over $6 million of our local property tax to take from our operating budget to ensure that the basic needs for our higher needs students are met. But they deserve it, and they deserve more. We also refinanced about $20 million in long-term district debt, which Andy also mentioned, which is going to save our local taxpayers about $1.1 million over the next 10 years. You can also see here on this next slide that this year our healthcare fund holds $1.6 million because we have had 2 years in a row now of lower healthcare costs, which is great. And it will hopefully give the district some cushion should we have a year of increased illness, or should hospitals start encouraging elective procedures, we have a rush for care. The other $43 million you see here is ready to pay for our funded projects that are in process. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation. It's been a real pleasure to work as the treasurer for the board, and I appreciate you.
That's good. Done. All right, Dan, strategic planning.
Mr. Grabowski, just informed me that I have 3 minutes. So I'll be as long as I was at the beginning of the meeting on 7/27. You're not kidding at all. So like I started off at the beginning, we push our rock together. I rock over here, I over there, all rock together. These two house. They're all working together. More than half of jobs, more than half of jobs today, elementary and secondary schools don't exist yet. That's from Manpower Report in 2017. I dug out a little bit deeper on that. I was wondering what some of those jobs might be that my young sons, my more daughters, my experience at some point in the future. It's a little scary to read, but if you look at this, you see juvenile cybercrime rehabilitation counselors. Right? Shake your head and look at it for a second. AI business development manager, AI healthcare technicians, augmented reality journey. Considering majors. Okay. Highway controller, right? Think about those, you've seen those Tesla long haul trucks, they pick their own lane on the highway that we're talking about. And someone has to program and direct. And a lot of them are smaller, like 7 of them, think about the challenges she may face, what jobs she may have to find someday. Shake my head, think about the world we live in, the basic, which is so important. Right? Think about that. What's it all about? Here's some pictures from our annual Connects graduation. Here's some pictures of our kids in our elementary schools. I love this one, brings it together and brings all full circle for us. Senior graduation walk, I think it's a fabulous thing, wonderful feature in our community. I can't believe we get to do this again. It's really special. You see
elementary students. And always lacking for kids who come back to their buildings, the teachers who might not have seen kids for years, they see them all grown up, and they go out into the world. Everybody after that, and see people flying out, people being. Quick, quick job. The references in the beginning of the meeting. What we try to do is help our district requirements, our school plans, and our school goals all work together in one to create greater student achievement. That'll work off sometimes. So we have 1,000 people to work with this organization. We want everyone to engage. We want each school improvement plan to support district goals that the board talks about. We want every teacher's individual classroom plans, to help support the school plans, to help support the district plan. It's much easier said than done. We have a building leadership teams come together, help everybody go in the same direction. So that when you're talking with seniors math goals or seniors literacy goals, trying to get more kids into advanced math, trying to get more seniors engaged in advanced English language arts courses, trying to improve scale scores of the STAR tests, when we're trying to get more of our teachers engaged in continuous improvement practices that are important to our systems, when we're trying to move forward in social and emotional learning, what does that mean for each teacher? How do they get that into their individual classroom plans? We want every teacher to have goals to help support major goals supported by the board, to help us go in one direction. Since Russell's still in the room right now, one of our elementary school principals, very challenging to have support staff of 30 or 40 and their efforts individually their goals and support for building leadership teams, building improvement plan that dovetails nicely into the district's improvement plan. It's a lot of coordination, and it's an important way to keep everybody going in the same direction. We build successful futures together. I went most of my slides on the front end of this presentation, but community pictures. I saved one of my favorites for the conclusion here. Really like this one. See everybody together. The happier times, both these factors as soon as possible. Okay. And you can go back.
All right, number 5 on the agenda, annual meeting action items by elected.
So since we're gonna all be voting on something, should the annual meeting adopt the agenda beforehand? That's something that we should do, or?
I'm sorry.
Well, we technically put it in the agenda now. Dr. Rozier, because we're now asking them to elect us to vote.
ABC.
But yeah, we just did Dr. Rozier. But
Does someone want to make a motion of adopting A, B, and C? And, yes, A, B, C.
So they're going to make the motion to adopt the agenda for items A, B, and C.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, if you could raise your hand.
So that was a motion to adopt the agenda and a second to adopt the agenda per Mitchell's point.
what's that?
27 yes.
And anybody that says no.
Nays? Seeing none.
Your name.
All right, so the next is adopt the tax levy. Recommendation of, recommended motion is to be resolved that the tax in amount of $38,802,362 be levied on all properties, real and personal, within the boundaries of Oak Creek Franklin Joint School District for the purpose of refinancing the educational programs of the Oak Creek Franklin Public Schools for the 2020-21 school year. We have a motion.
Typically moves as read. Trevor Johnson, second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor of adopt the tax levy, please raise your hand. Anyone against it? It says no, no, raise your hand.
Ayes.
Six nays.
B, set salaries and authorize expense reimbursement of school board members. Recommend the normal motion to be resolved by the electors of Oak Creek Franklin Joint School District, Milwaukee County, State of Wisconsin. Authorize the annual salary for school board president to be set at $5,700. For all other school board members, be set at $5,400 for the 2020-21 year. Everyone that's voting yea, please raise your hand. Oh, sorry, sorry. It's a long night. We have a motion. Okay. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All raise your hand for yeas.
Yeas.
All nays, raise your hand.
Four nays.
Thank you. Number 2, further resolve that the electors authorize the payment of actual and necessary expenses of school board members when traveling in the performance of duties. We have a motion.
Typically moves to approve.
Okay. All yeas, please raise your hand.
Yeas.
And all nays, raise your hand.
Four nays.
Okay. Number C, set the time and date for the annual meeting for 2021. Okay. Resolve date of the annual meeting for 2021 and 22 school year would be August 23rd, 2021, immediately following the budget hearing at Carrollton Elementary School, 8965 South Carrollton Drive, Oak Creek. We have a motion.
Typically moves to approve. McLeod, second.
All yeas, please raise your hand.
Yeas.
All nays, raise your hand.
Zero nays.
We have an adjourn, we have a motion to adjourn this annual meeting.
Meeting with another proposal for the citizens to be allowed to vote on the actions being taken for the kids to go back to school.
Okay,
Like
so
that, this agenda item.
I will turn that to our attorney.
That is an item that is not properly before the annual meeting under the powers of the annual meeting under Wisconsin State Statute 120.10. And therefore, it's not an item that is able to be considered by the electorate and put to a vote at this particular annual meeting.
Are we allowed to bring it to a special meeting?
It is likely not an item that it could be brought to a special meeting by the electorate, and that is again because it's not a power of the annual meeting under 120.10 or enumerated elsewhere in the statutes.
So do we have a motion to adjourn the annual meeting?
So we might move to adjourn.
So I can raise your hand again. Okay, all yeas, please raise your hand.
Two yeas.
All nays, raise your hand. All right, thank you for everyone for coming, appreciate it, have a good night.